Hello and welcome to Hank Games Without a Hank. It's me, your host, John Green. We're playing, of course, with the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers. Today we're up against Coventry City. Somehow they have not sold out, in spite of the Swoodilypoopers coming to town. Maybe that's because the Swoodilypoopers lost their last game humiliatingly to Notts County as I went up a skill level. And I have to say, played an exceptionally bad game of Hank Games Without Hank, both in terms of the quality of the commentary and the quality of the play. I will try to avoid that today by telling you stories of all the famous people I have ever met and how I came to meet them. And also, I will try to win at the professional skill level of FIFA 11. We have no Ball John Green and no other John Green today. They're resting at home together, trying to facilitate Ball John Green's recovery from his disastrous injury and, and just, having a day where they're being just together. Instead, up front, we have Voluptuous Pericard and Leroy Williamson. We've got F. Bolzoni in the midfield and Fat Lucas in goal. It's the second team of the Swoodilypoopers, no doubt about it. It's not the best club we can put on, but it's the club we've got today based on who's tired and hurt and injured. I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people I consider famous over the years, from Luna Lovegood, a.k.a. Ivana Lynch, to Michael Stipe, the lead singer of REM, who I met just recently. And I've met Will Wheaton. I've met Hank Green, noted internet musician and entrepreneur Hank Green. I met him when he was brought home from the hospital at the age of 0. Very charming kid. I didn't like him initially, but I've since come around. But I wanted to tell you, that is not a good shot. That is why Voluptuous Pericard is not in our start. That was Leroy Williamson. That is why Leroy Williamson is not supposed to be a striker. He's supposed to be a midfielder. I want him to score, though, just because somebody somebody wrote a great song about Leroy Williamson that I want to share with you. That's trouble. So let's start with, so I met Michael Stipe recently, the former lead singer of REM, a band that broke up like 2 weeks after I met Michael Stipe. So soon after I met Michael Stipe that one can't help but think that maybe Michael Stipe broke up REM because he was like, well, I accomplished my goal. I got to meet John Green. So now maybe REM doesn't need to be a band anymore. So for those of you who don't know, Michael Stipe's the lead singer of the band REM, which was my favorite band when I was a kid. And generally is just a really great band. And I got to meet Michael Stipe because he went to the Venice Biennale. He's a big contemporary art person. For those of you who don't know, my wife is a curator of contemporary art, and her museum this year had the honor of curating the American Pavilion of the Venice Biennale, which is like basically, not to brag or anything, but it's the biggest deal in the world of contemporary art. And so for like a weekend, I got to be really fancy. Fat Lucas, great job. I got to be super fancy. I got to wear, I had to buy 2 nice suits, and unfortunately, I had a diseased gallbladder, so I didn't have much fun at these things. But, like all the fancy, famous people were there. I think Elton John was at one of the parties or something, and they all happened in these palaces in Venice that, people had lived in the 15th century, doges, I don't know. Anyway, it was pretty fancy. And at one of the parties, my friend who works at the museum, Meg, came up to me and she said, listen, Michael Stipe is coming to the party, and I have to hand him his... that guy's hurt. I feel bad for him because, he looks exactly like Bald John Green looked. I'm having flashbacks to when we lost Bald John Green for at least 40 days and possibly the season. 40 days and 40 nights with no Bald John Green. That guy's name is Wood. Anyway, why are you so tired, Leroy Williamson? I don't want to have to sub you out. So Meg, I was like, Michael Stipe is my hero. He wrote my favorite songs. I really was. I still think that REM is one of the great popular music bands of all time. But in 1995 or 1996, I would have told you that REM had made more important music than Beethoven. Anyway, Meg consented to give me the card, so then it became my responsibility. Is there another injured player to give Michael Stipe his? It became my job to give Michael Stipe his card, and so he came to the party, and I was like, "Hello, hey there, Mr. Stipe. Here's your card to go to dinner." And he was like, "Yeah, thanks." freak. So yeah, that's the story of how I met Michael Stipe. And then later at that same party, someone introduced me to him and was like, John's an author. He's not a creeper. I don't think it helped. But anyway, also at the Venice Biennale, I met, you remember that guy from the Dan and Dan commercials who went and won all the Olympic gold medals in decathlons? I met him. He was like the nicest, literally the nicest famous person I've ever met. And also, there were a number of Olympians at this Venice Biennale thing for reasons that I would have to get into the artwork to explain. But yeah, so I met, but I met several Olympic medalists, and they were all improbably cool. Like you would think that people who devoted their lives to something so different from what I've become, that's terrible shooting. So different from what I've devoted my life to that we wouldn't get along. But in fact, like I think that I have a very special connection to Olympic gymnasts. Yeah, we talked all night, and yeah, and Dan was super cool, and you know, they were really good listeners, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like generally, when people are famous, they are so used to being asked questions about themselves and to talking about themselves that they don't think to ask you questions about yourself. It's halftime, 0-0. Coventry City versus the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers. Look at all the Swoodilypooping fans there in the audience. They're only in one corner, but they have the heart of champions. I'm going to have to make some substitutions here at halftime because I'm not pleased with the way it's gone. I'm going to bring in Stone Cold Steve with a C Austin, my favorite Steve, Kative, as he is sometimes known. By the way, I wanted to let you know that all of these players have, for those of you who don't know, have Twitter feeds, and also there is this great Tumblr, the Swindon Town Gazette, that follows the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers. Also, I will put a link in the doobly-doo to the Facebook fan group for the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers, so you can join that, get updates on what's going on, and also see pictures of bald John Green suffering while other John Green looks on, staring into the distance. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the land of Swoodilypoopers. The work that's come out of this is so much more amazing than my stupid, terrible video game playing. But I will be telling you in the next few episodes more about the lives of other players on the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers, including some of our lesser-known stars like Voluptuous Paracard, Stone Cold Steve with the C. Austin, F. Bolzoni, etc., and of course the life of Fat Lucas, which has been, it's been difficult. He's definitely had a hard go of it, but we're so proud of him for all the success that he's had in spite of his troubles. But anyway, you're not going to chest it in on me, big guy. You don't score on chests. I'm sorry. So who else have I met who was fairly well known? I mean, I've met a lot of YouTube stars. I've met. I took Ray William Johnson out to lunch once at the restaurant Land. I think I can, and I think I did pay, so I think I can say that I took him out to lunch, which was a lot of fun. Ray's a really nice guy and a really funny person, and he was a lot of fun to hang out with. And Will of DC was there, and Mika Kitty, who's a friend of mine. It was really that was fun. So that was probably. But I've also met all of, not to brag, but like all of the big YouTubers, Michael Buckley, Shay Carl, everybody. Smosh, both Smoshes, the kids from Kids React to, not to brag, but I have met the kids from Kids React to. Those kids were amazing because they were so. There was one of them, I can't remember. I can never remember their names, but the cute boy was so excited to meet Wheezy Waiter, like. So excited to meet Wheezy Waiter that he basically ran. The Fine Brothers were like, "This is John Green. He's one of the organizers of VidCon, and he's one of the Vlog Brothers, and you've probably seen him on YouTube." And the kid was like, "Is that Wheezy Waiter?" And basically like shoved me to the side to get to Craig. But what can you do? I mean, I like Craig more than I like myself too. So yeah, I mean in that world, and then I've met a lot of like literary celebrities. Of course, I've hung out several times with Judy Blume. And did I ever tell you the story of the email that Judy Blume sent me on my 30th birthday? I don't know if she'd want me to tell you this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Judy Blume is just so freaking awesome. So this is the email that Judy Bloom sent me on my 30th birthday in its entirety. John, heard you turned 30 today. Happy birthday, even though you're too old for me now. Vrar! Judy Bloom, how awesome are you? Oh man, she's like, yeah, she's amazing. She's an institution, and a huge inspiration to me as a writer and as a person and as someone who has really devoted herself to mentoring so many great young writers. I just think incredibly highly of her. And I met Stephen Chbosky, the author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower. That was one of the few times I really freaked out in front of someone. I couldn't stop talking to him about his book, and he was like, "Man, just trying to eat lunch here." Yeah, who else? Who else do I know? I know Maureen Johnson. She's pretty well known on the internet. Yeah, I feel like I'm coming up with the few times that I've been around, like, genuinely, like one time I saw Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend from The Strokes, which is a band, for those of you who don't know, not like some euphemism. One of the few times I saw her, like I saw her in the streets of New York, and I never recognize famous people when I see them. I just think that they're exceptionally beautiful. So when I saw Drew Barrymore, I didn't think like, oh man, that's Drew Barrymore. I thought, who is that exceptionally good-looking girl walking out of the Best Buy? It wasn't a Best Buy, but it was some stereo store. I was like, wow, that is a really pretty woman who's just walking the streets of New York with a kind of funny-looking dude. And then my friend Sean, who was with me, was like, that's Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend from The Strokes. And I'm like, oh, that explains it, because no one should be that pretty without being famous. I also saw Steve Buscemi once, and I was like, that guy is really strange looking. I actually said that to my wife. I was like, Sarah, look at the guy getting the cab. He's got like a face that's lived 1,000 years. And Sarah said, yeah, that's Steve Buscemi, John. He's a well-known actor. You might have seen him in Reservoir Dogs. Did a bit on 30 Rock. Anyway, so yeah, I haven't ever like hung out with any proper Hollywood types, and I have to say, I don't really have a desire to. I am impressed by celebrity when it's someone who I really admire or whose talent, like, I wish I had. The way that, I mean, obviously, I wish I was Michael Stipe, because he's a really great songwriter and singer and musician, but he's also does lots of other cool stuff. Oh no! Is the game over? Oh, time flies when you're talking about celebrities. I'm devastated. Of course, they're happy in Coventry City because they held Swindon Town 0-0. We're gonna have to bring back other John Green next game. Look for that. That guy had a mullet. Can somebody screen cap that? Go into the past and look at that guy's mullet, because that was a special mullet. Wish I could get him on my team. Thank you for watching another episode of Hank Games Without Hank. I will return tomorrow with news about, the Swindon Town Swoodilypoopers and stories from my life. Let me know in comments what you'd like me to talk about. And as always, best wishes.